Hi, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. Welcome to Shifting Perspectives, the Lightworkers edition. So, in this particular podcast, we're going to be talking about what the sixth perspective actually is, what you're getting into, and what doors are opening up for you, and where it is you're going. This is something that I've been really. It's something I started a while ago, and I've been trying to formulate it in my mind to figure out how best to proceed, where I wanted to take this. And I started up a group on Facebook called LightWorker's Unite, or the LightWorkers Union, which is still absolutely solid. And it's definitely a direction I am going to be going with this. I also have Operation Imagination. If you go to my website, www.honnesthealinggarden.org, there is World Peace. Click on World Peace and it drops it down. That's everything for the sixth perspective. And you will see World Manifestation Day or World Peace Manifestation Day. You're going to see Operation Imagination, and that's going to get into it. And then you're going to see that group for the Lightworkers Union. So this is basically the fourth pillar of this project. And I basically have global healing, and there's a whole project that I'm doing, but I realized, well, I didn't know what I was doing. I just had the vision. I saw the end point. I just didn't know how to get there. So I put down these pillars and went, well, these are the pillars. And I don't know yet. When the universe is ready to give these to me, then I'll figure it out. And it was the last 2-3 days that this started to form. And now I see it and I'm like, aha, I had my eureka moment. So finally, this is probably a seed I planted 3 months ago, and I'm finally here to grow this thing so I can start going over this. I talk a lot on perspective psychology, and if you are new to this and you're lost, you're probably going to need to go through the university, which is fine. I offer a free course down in my YouTube channel that goes into this in a lot more detail, and it breaks it down where I get into perspective psychology. Now, I'm not going to do that here because I do it elsewhere a lot. And once you start getting into the habit of listening to me speak, Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Orange will take over. That's the way our brains are. We're linguistic creatures. It's amazing. So Clockwork Orange is one of my favorite books. And when you sit down with Clockwork Orange and you read it, the first paragraph, you're like, whoa. But by the fifth page, you've figured out the language and you're fine and it flows. Halfway through the book, you've even forgotten that you're speaking a different language. And it's funny because when I read Clockwork Orange and I put the book down and I went back into fourth perspective conversations, I was like, I didn't even realize I'd stepped into this other dialogue in this book. We are adept at learning how to do this. So just hanging out with me in my podcasts, just learning the way I'm speaking, it'll pick up real fast. The more you're in here, the more you're going to hear it. So at first it's going to be confusing. When I first started my podcast, Shifting Perspectives, I muted myself. I censored myself. I purposely steered away from the conversations, from the language. And I realized that it was boxing me in. It was holding me back into the fourth perspective language system. And I realized that's not going to be okay. I can't do that. That's not me. I couldn't be authentic. So that is when I was in sixth perspective. And then when I crossed over to seventh, that's when I basically told everyone to shut the fuck up, which is seventh perspective thinking. And you really get to sit with your own self in the universe a lot. And then you realize once you max out the seventh perspective lesson, every perspective has a lesson to learn. Once you max out the seventh perspective lesson, you start to realize if I want to grow, I'm going to have to do X. That is the point where you step into the next perspective. It's when you use the sentence, if I want to grow, I'm going to have to do X. As soon as you reach that point, finally, that's the opening the door for the next stage. So I did that with the seventh perspective. I maxed it out and I'm going to go over it. But first, we're going to focus on sixth perspective. And you can't skip perspectives. Don't even try. You can't do it. Not going to fucking happen. Not going to happen. Because then what you'll end up doing is you'll be trying to talk and reflect on the eighth perspective, but you're going to be stuck in sixth perspective. There is a milestone. There's going to be stuff you have to learn and master at each one of these, and you can't bullshit the universe. The bullshit ends at the sixth stage. Bottom line, bullshit ends at the sixth stage. Once you get to that point, you realize you got to be real with yourself. There is no faking it. You can't be a faker after the 6th stage. That's where all the shit falls off of you, and it's authenticity or not at all. There are no fakers past the 6th stage. And that's really what you're up against. The 6th stage is the stage where you now got to choose how many of your masks are you going to keep? How much of the bullshit are you going to keep? And how real are you going to get with yourself? And once you commit to getting real with yourself, and I mean fucking real, then the 7th door will open for you. So here, this space is going to be walking through what's going on in perspectives 6, 7, and 8. And I'm mostly going to focus on 6 because once you get to the 7th, it's just you and the universe. You're alone. You're alone. The 7th stage is the transition stage where you are in so much culture shock. You don't want to talk. It's the isolation stage. You want to be alone. When the 7th stage hits, you crave it because you're in so much culture shock and you're in just so much awe. It's just you and your thoughts in the universe. And you will withdraw. You will drop out. You're going to be up to that 6th stage. You're chaos. You're trying to grasp the universe and understand it. You're not going to understand it. You're just lost. And then it's going to make sense and you're going to see it and you're going to go silent. And then you're just going to turn off Facebook. You're going to turn off all the social media. You're going to turn off all your friends and you are going to go away. That's Judgment Day. That's Judgment Day. It's just you and the universe and karma. Yeah. So I'm not going to talk much on the 7th perspective because that's personal. And you'll see. But the 6th stage is a fucking nightmare. It's chaos. So I am here to break down the 6th perspective for you and to prepare you. Right now, up to now, all you have had available to you is the 2nd stage perspective. And I'm going to go ahead and break down the 2nd stage for you because that's going to clarify a lot for you. These perspectives are broken down. The thing that actually severs and separates all of us from perspective to perspective is actually our ethics, what we prioritize. And what we prioritize, I did a video on this another day ago. Actually, I am a finger licker. When I want to turn page, I lick my fingers. I'm aware of how unsanitized that is, and I don't give a fuck because it's just me and my paper. Don't judge me. Now, let me see if I can find it. This is me going back on my notes because I would rather just read from my notes. Found it. Oh, how convenient. Past me knew I would need these. Thank you, past me. Okay, so here it is. Ready? So the 1st stage, I don't talk about the 1st stage. I'm going to talk about the 1st stage now. The 1st stage is 1-year-olds. It's infants, okay? I do not remember what I prioritized when I was an infant. I am sure it was food and mother. I'm going to guess it was food. I don't think any of us, maybe some of us, I don't know. I just don't remember. I'm going to guess that the 1st stage prioritizes, I don't know. I can't guess. They don't have a vocabulary. They lack the vocabulary. They've got feelings. That's what they got. They got feelings. They feel hunger. They feel fear. They feel comfort. Our feelings are really connected to us in that 1st stage. So I'm going to call this the feeling stage, the feeling perspective, where everything is just feelings. Because that's really all you got. You have no vocabulary yet. You have no words to define the feelings. You just feelings. That's all you got. It's the 2nd stage. The 2nd stage perspective. Yeah, I'm going to call it raw feeling. That's a great raw feeling because that's all you got. Second stage. Second stage is when you prioritize community. Now, you might be prioritizing community, or that's the community stage, but let me show you what you're really doing. You have your ethics, you have your autonomy, and you have your authority. Okay? You've heard the game hot potato, pass the potato. The 8 perspectives is actually a game of hot potato, but you're not passing potatoes, you're passing authority. It is authority. It is who has the authority and where you're going to put the authority. And that's all that this is. Now, your authority is going to be in relationship to your autonomy. That's your self-government. And also your, what is it called? 8th perspective. Come on, where'd it go? 6th perspective. I'm reading my notes. My notes are chaos. I wish I knew what to call it. The world, the planet. I've been calling it ethics, but it's not that. It's something else, and I don't have the word for it. Environment. That's it. It's the environment. Oh, that took a long time. That should not have taken that long for me to figure out. Okay, so this is basically it. You've got your authority. You've got your autonomy. You've got your environment. You need your relationship and your defined relationship with fairness and equality. And basically, there's a spectrum. There's extreme left and there's extreme left and there's extreme right. And then there's that neutral in between. And the perspectives are just basically swinging back and forth, one extreme to the next. There's one extreme and then the next extreme, and then you balance it out and you realize you need both. And then you advance. Okay. So this is how it works. In the second stage, your authority goes to the community leader. Okay. It starts off in the first stage with the authority being assigned to the caregiver, the mother. And then in the second stage, that authority gets shifted over to the community leader. Your community leader could be anybody. Usually it's the head of the household. When daddy is home, oh, well, he's got the authority. When you go to church, pastor has the authority. When you go to work, oh, the boss has the authority. This is very much community mindset. Now, 6 perspectives. Pay attention to this because this is really important. The concept is very tribal. It means your identity, who you are and where you fit in the world, defines you. So that's really what we are doing with each of these perspectives is we are asking the philosophical question, how am I defined? That is what we are doing between each one of these perspectives. How am I defined? We're going to use philosophy to really break down this psychology. And the next question we're asking is, who has my authority? Or who has the authority? Okay. So these are the questions that we're asking when we do perspective psychology. This is why psychology, traditional psychology, stalled out at the 4th perspective. It's because you require philosophy to even enter perspective psychology. And because they lack it, they haven't been able to advance it to this point. So how am I defined is the first question that's being asked. And the second question is, who has the authority? And we're going to start the game of passing the authority. Okay, that's how we go through all of the perspectives. So in the first perspective, how am I defined? There is no definition. It's just feeling. Who has the authority? Mother, the caregiver. She's the one who determines when I eat, when I sleep, when I get clean. It's all on her. The next question, the next stage is the community leader. This is the tribal stage. I don't like the word tribal. It doesn't align, which tells me it's not accurate. So for me, it is who has the authority in the community. It's the community leader, community mindset. So now it's how am I defined? Well, you're not defined. You are defined by the role you serve to the community. That's how you are defined, is your role in the community. I'm going to be blunt. This is communism. This is 100% where communism comes from. In addition, who has the authority? The community leader. Communism is the government that comes from the second stage perspective. Religion is spirituality that comes from this perspective. So when you, as a sixth perspective, are pulling, you are actually pulling from the question, how are you defined? By your role in the community. Does that align with you? You're a sixth perspective. Probably not. You probably went, oh my God, no, that's not me at all. I'm a person, because you've discovered your autonomy, which is why I'm going, guys, can you please get away from the second perspective material? Because the second perspective material is designed with intent to destroy your autonomy. Read the Bible again. That's why they say you're nothing. The church is what matters. It destroys the ego. It's because it's for the second perspective, which is communism, which is the definition of you are nothing unless you are defined by the role in your community. That's second perspective thinking. Your role is who you are. And if you don't have your role, well, then you're nothing. Welcome to Old Norse mythology. So the next question, who has the authority, is the community leader, which means the pastor, the preacher. So every time a sixth person pulls from witchcraft, from paganism, from communism, from anything to do with a second perspective, that is what you are tapping into, is the how are you defined by your role, and who has the authority? The community leader. That's why it's called communism, community. So stop pulling from material from the second perspective. It does not apply. It's obsolete. And if you're going to go back to material from the second perspective, keep that in mind, that second perspective priorities is what shaped it. And it's tainted with it. It's saturated in it. The third perspective changes the question. How am I defined? Okay, this is what I call the Lord of the Rings stage. I'm sorry, I misspoke. My nerd brain. I'm a nerd, in case you haven't figured it out by now. Lord of the Flies. This is the Lord of the Flies stage. Now, Dr. Graves created spiral dynamics. Dr. Graves did not talk about society because he was not a sociologist. He just saw these 8 stages of growth that all the people, every person advances through, and most of us saw around 4. And that's about it. He had a couple other things, and that's all I saw from his material. He did not go a step further and say, wow, our whole society has this. Wow, look at how people over here are abusing people. He didn't do any of that. That's all me. So that being said, he called the third stage the aggression stage. This is wrong, because there's a lot of people who are third party, who are in the third stage perspective, and they're not aggressive. So calling it the aggression stage is where traditional therapy really fucks this up, which is why I really don't like, there's a lot here. This is where it separates. The other stage, I used to call it the independent stage, and that's a really good independent. It's the independent stage. We see this a lot with 3-year-olds. They are the embodiment of the third stage perspective. Okay. Now, I like to call it the Lord of the Flies stage because chaos usually does ensue. Now, if you read the book Lord of the Flies, you remember there were 3 different characters. There was Ralph, there was Piggy, and there was the other guy. I cannot remember the other guy. Children, do we have Lord of the Flies anywhere accessible? Could you grab it for me and bring it to me? Piggy is what most likely you were when you were in the third stage. That is somebody, it's an empath. I'm just going to get right to it. It's an empath. It's somebody who's a pacifist, who's in Lord of the Flies, and they're still in the independent stage, but they don't believe in violence. So you might have been a Piggy. Piggy is one of the main characters in Lord of the Flies. And he was the empath in the independent stage. And the other character, the one I can't remember, he was the narcissist in Lord of the Flies. So you have a narcissist in Lord of the Flies, and you have an empath in Lord of the Flies, and then you have fourth stage perspective Ralphie in Lord of the Flies. So oh God, this is such a I got to reread this book. Man, I can see it now. Eighth perspective. This is how eighth perspective sees Lord of the Flies. So Ralphie is the main character, and he's the one who views everybody involved as we have to have law, we have to have order. So that's a fourth perspective trying to put down, is that Animal Farm or Ayn Rand? Listen to me. Is it Animal Farm or Ayn Rand as everyone's walking around looking for Lord of the Flies? I love my dystopian novels. So Ralphie's from that movie. Ralph is the lead. He takes on the civil leader. He represents order, and he very much is the fourth perspective representative, saying we need law, we need justice, we need order. So he starts creating all the laws. But then there's a narcissist in the bunch who is all about, this is amazing, I'm in my happy place. And the reason why is because what happens with the third party perspective is how you are defined is the self, and who has the authority is the self. It's when you realize that your mom or your community leader doesn't need the authority. I'm the authority. It's rebellion. It's 100% the rebellious stage. The rebellion stage is that point where you decide to just become Lord of the Flies. It's when you decide to take the authority for the self. It's when you decide to take your autonomy and you run with it, which is really good for self-definition. That's what you're supposed to be doing here. But you have, again, inside the book, Lord of the Flies, you have the fourth perspective leader trying to instill order. And then through the whole book, it completely falls apart. And you've got the empath, Piggy, and you've got the other character who I can't remember. And that character is the narcissist. He's the one who just wants to go kill a pig. And it gets way out of hand. And you can see how all the characters in Lord of the Flies are basically indulging in the third perspective of chaos of Lord of the Flies, where they're all practicing autonomy, they're all practicing authority, and they're all focused on how am I defined by myself, and who has the authority? Me. Now, there is one major problem with the third party perspective, which is the weakness of the third party perspective. The purpose of third party perspective is to define the self via walkabout. You're supposed to be alone, like Castaway level alone. That's fine. Focused thinking. When we meet someone, there are two major priorities. And those priorities are your opinion versus the rights, the freedoms, and the opinions of others. Now, I'm going to focus on the rights and the freedoms. There is a scale, and your opinion is either more important, equal to, or less important than the rights and freedoms of others. This is really important. The person is toxic when they value and prioritize their opinion more than your rights and freedoms. That's narcissism. A good person, an ethical person, a well-adjusted person, one who plays well with others, values them on the same path. Opinions, rights, and freedoms of others are equal. They prioritize your rights and freedoms ethically alongside their own opinion. So now you're going to get assertion. Now you're going to get boundaries. And your rights and your freedoms are going to be respected. But if you have that imbalance where their opinion is prioritized over your rights and freedoms, now they're going to abuse you. Now, if you have it the other way, they're going to be self-sacrificial, and they're not going to set up boundaries. This is where the empath usually ends up. Instead, you just being you is going to end up walking all over this person just because you're being you. This isn't abuse. This is just them failing to set up their boundaries. What you want is this here, where it's equal, because then they'll use boundaries and they will respect yours. But the narcissist does this, where their opinions are more important than your rights and freedoms, so they abuse you. In Lord of the Flies, Piggy is down here. Well, Piggy is down here. His rights and freedoms are down here, and he will not assert his opinions. And that one character, the narcissist, attacks Piggy. So Piggy gets abused. Now they are all in the third perspective. And you have a narcissist in this group. Now, a narcissist in the third perspective is the person who does all the abusing. All the abusing. Every abuser in the world is a narcissist in the third perspective. By the way, you don't get to leave the third perspective until you get out of this. Once you advance, you stop being a narcissist. It kind of goes away. Once you grow out of it, grow out of it. Yeah, once you evolve, that's the lesson that you need to learn. The lesson that you need to learn is fairness and equality. That's the lesson that needs to be learned. Yes, you need to be defined. Your autonomy matters. Yes, you have the authority. But there's also fairness, law, and order. And the narcissist never learns it. So the narcissist is forever trapped in the third perspective. That is why we have abusers. Because they value their opinion more than rights and freedoms. Because they have failed to learn the primary lesson of the third perspective, which is you need equality, you need fairness, and you need law. Now, the third perspective is fucking horrible and crazy and scary. So by the time you get to the fourth perspective and you shift, how am I defined and who has the authority? You go the other extreme. That is why fourth perspectives cling so desperately to law and order, is because they just came out of Lord of the Flies. So when you get into the fourth perspective, how am I defined? I am defined by how I obey the law. Who has the authority? The law has the authority. And it's all about obedience. Now, this is when we get into the slave mind. This is 100% the slave mind. Now, when you have a slave mind mindset, obedience, law, order, and authority all belonging to the master, yes, very much. The slave master mind is 100% the fourth perspective. Now, when you've got that, there's also a hierarchy that comes with it, which is left over from the second stage perspective. There's a hierarchy, pecking order, who's in charge. And this is what we're doing here. We're arguing over who has the authority and where your autonomy is defined. And that's all we're doing here. This is what I call the foundational periods 1 through 4, because they lay the foundation for a culture and a society. And when you lay the foundation of a culture and a society, now you enter into the question of how strong and how healthy is your culture and your society. How good are we at managing these 4 mindsets, these 4 perspectives? Well, to be perfectly blunt, we fucking suck at it because we're oblivious to it. That's one of the things I'm hoping to correct with this. So once you become aware of these 4 perspectives, of the foundations, of the basic maintenance and health and management of these 4 perspectives, suddenly the perspective shifts. You want a better society? Fix these 4 people. Fix these 4 perspectives. They lack a lot because they can only see the first 4 perspectives. The problem is we're all abused at the second perspective, the third perspective, and the fourth perspective. So we're not growing. By the way, perspectives 1 through 4, they do not value education. They do not value growth. They only value the comfort zone. And they are the majority of our culture. Narcissists are put into a society now. People trapped in the third-party subconscious mind are handed the fourth perspective rules. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to use the fourth perspective rules to create slaves for their system. Because you have given a third perspective mind access to a fourth perspective thing. So now you have a narcissist with that third perspective mindset having access to law and order. Well, they're going to manipulate it for their own self because they value opinion and rights and freedoms. And now they're going to lord over you with law and order. They're going to manipulate that. They're going to use it, which is going to put you in a mindset of slave and master. And the narcissist is going to use this on purpose to make sure they are the master and you are the slave because they value their opinions over your rights and freedoms. So when you have the third and the fourth perspective working together like this, that's the fucking cocktail you end up with. Welcome to third and fourth perspective. Now, the fourth perspectives who graduated from the third perspective properly completely went the other way. Those are your Republicans. Those are your Republicans. 100%. Those are your Republicans. These are the people who absolutely value, oh, you got to be fair, you got to be equal, you got to be right. We all got to be the same. We all have to have our boxes. That is your fourth perspective thinking. Fifth perspective is a transitional stage. The fifth perspective is when you value the autonomy and the authority on par. It's the moment you realize that you have the ability to do your own government. You can self-government. Yes, law and order is important. It has its place, but it's not everything. That's the fifth perspective thinking. Why am I catering to a 9-to-5 job when I can go get my own job and do my own thing? Why do I have to be limited to this glass ceiling in the box? Glass ceiling thinking is fourth perspective thinking. Entrepreneurs are the ones who take off the glass ceiling, who says, fuck it, let's go ahead and think of our own thing. They are the ones who start to step into creativity. Prior to the fifth perspective, there is no creativity. It's been destroyed. It's killed. It's dead. It's the fifth perspective who values creativity and art. But the majority of our culture revolves around the third and the fourth perspective's desires. As a result, there is no creativity, there is no education, there is no growth, so we're stuck. Now that fifth perspective is coming in, we're going to see a rise of education, a rise of prioritizing growth, which is why mental health is on the rise. It's because of the millennials. Now, the fourth perspectives fucking hate the millennials. Yep, that's right, because those millennials are pushing the fourth perspectives outside of their comfort zone, and fourths don't like that. Thank you, millennials. We need you. Oh my God, millennial love here. Millennial love. Oh my God, we need that generation. And the next generation is going to push it to the next level, by the way. The 60s hippie generation, Woodstock generation, they were the first ones to step out of the fourth perspective and say, fuck this shit. Thanks. And then they created Burning Man. Thank you. That's right. They were the very first sixth perspectives to break out of that. The British invasion in the 50s and 60s, thank fucking God. That was the sixth perspective emerging. For the first time, the sixth perspective emerged. That's when we saw the rise of psychedelics, and that's when we saw the rise of marijuana. What was happening was the fourth perspective and the fifth perspective had maxed out, and the sixth perspective burst open. We started to see six perspectives waking up, and then it exploded. And now they've grown, and now they're light workers, which is why we're starting to see eighth perspectives now, which means once we see the flux, in 30 years, we're going to have as many eighth perspectives as we have of sixth perspectives. See where this is going? It's really cool, right? Follow me, all right? So fifth perspective is stuck. Fifth perspective, you're going to have 5 4s, you're going to have 5 5s, and you're going to have 5 6s. Now, this is my own little system that I've invented to make this a lot smoother for us to understand. Just because you're a 5 doesn't mean you're a solid 5. There's a growth stage. You're going to be toggling between 4 and 5, and then you're going to be 5 5, and then you're going to be at the end of 5 and with starting to see the transition of 6. So really it looks like this. It's 5 4. That's when you're a 4 living in a 4 job, a 4 society, but you're dreaming of having your own business. That's a 4 5. And then you decide, I'm going to quit my job. Now you've crossed over into 5 4. I'm going to quit my job, but you've got a lot of fourth programming in there. You got a lot of fourth programming. So you're going to want to try and get that business off the ground, but fours keep holding you back. Oh no, you got to follow the rules. You got to stay what everyone else is doing. You got to follow the line. You got to be a sheep. Oh my God, fourths love sheep. Yes, fourth is a sheep manufacturing company. That's what fourths are. Fourths like to create sheep. They are the Borg going, everyone's got to be, you will be assimilated. That is, that's the Borg. They're the Borg. That's going to become the Borg. That's what I'm just going to call them from now on, the Borg. The Borg. Yeah, the Borg. Okay. Twos are sheep. Maybe these are labels and maybe these are not nice. Maybe I shouldn't be doing them. So you have the fourth perspective, toggling with the fifth perspective mind. And then you have that fifth perspective stepping closer and closer to getting that job they want, getting the job, the business. But you've got to do the work to shed your fourth perspective. And as you do that, and as you step closer into that fifth perspective, you're going to really solidify yourself with 5-5. That's when you're like, all right, I got this. I figured out my perspective. I've got my job. My business is booming. I figured it out. I'm generating it now. I'm going somewhere with it. I'm figuring out my alignment. Everything is good. And you're great. You might stay there. But eventually, you're going to max it out, maybe, if you value growth. You might value comfort and stay right where you are. If you value growth, however, you might notice there's something out there. You might feel it. You might start to get sensitive to the electromagnetic field. And if you start to get sensitive to the electromagnetic field, it's going to, you're basically edging your way to physics. This is basically where your brain capacity, your hippocampus, is finally turning on and it's growing. And when your hippocampus finally reaches a certain level, it tunes in to your electromagnetic field. And when that happens, physics starts to play with you. You become the toy thing of physics. Welcome to the sixth perspective. So that is the preliminary intro work to what's happening between all of the perspectives. So when you finally get to stage 6 and physics is now starting to become an element inside of your brain where that electromagnetic is starting to play with things, usually people start to explore it. They start to poke at it. What is this? This is interesting. You might be drawn to astrology. You might be drawn to tarot cards and energy reading, and you might be drawn into more spirituality because you want to figure out what this shit is and you're trying to figure shit out. So you're pulling it all, anything you can. And unfortunately, the only thing accessible to us is material left over from the second stage, which is your tarot readings, your witchcraft, your voodoo dolls, all of that stuff. Because that stuff comes from tribes, it comes from cultures. It's basically trickled down from other 6th and 7th perspectives of other tribes that got interpreted. And that's all we've got, really. The third stage abandons all religion. The fourth stage is focused on law and order. And the fifth stage is focused on building your autonomy and making sure you are self-governed. While this is happening, and you start tuning back into it, you start looking back to religion because you think that's where it was. And it's related, but it's also quite not right because this was community-centered. This is very much community-centered where you are defined by your role. That's not what you want. What you are stepping into is the world of physics and the electromagnetic field. That is where you are stepping into. In order to explain what happens next, I'm going to have to break down physics, psychological manifestation, and philosophy. I dig right into this in all of my masterclasses. This is like content I throw around like it's nothing when I'm inside my masterclasses. And I'm debating on whether or not I should make it accessible to a non-paying side. That's what I'm doing. Because this is my shit. This is it. And I'm debating on whether or not I should make it accessible or not. I have to talk to my identity and my intuition about this. I have to figure that out because this is my gateway. This is as far as I take it. I can explain to you very basically that this is where physics starts to really settle in. And because you've got the physics cocktail happening in your brain, it's turning a lot of stuff on. When it turns a lot of stuff on, you're becoming more and more aware of it and you're becoming sensitized. You are definitely becoming aware of it and you want to pull toward it. And the problem is, if you're not aligned to your proper frequency, if you're not aligned to your proper frequency, if you are not true to your song, it's not going to be pretty. And the reason why it never bothered you before is because physics wasn't touching you before. It was, but you weren't tuned into it because your hippocampus was small. Once your hippocampus reaches a certain point, that's when you start to feel it. So your hippocampus has just grown. And now it's playing around with the physics, which is now interfering with it. But your entire body is nothing but physics. It's made up of an entire imbalance or balance alignment of positive and negative energy. And that comes off of the core of the positive or negative thoughts you're thinking, the positive negative influence that is you, your own internal song, your tonic, and whether or not you are aligned to your own truth, to your own perspective, to your own positive negative energy, and what your karma bank looks like. While all of this is playing into a factor, this is the fun part. Your abuse has dumped a whole lot of shit into you. And that's not part of your song. Suddenly your hippocampus is large. Physics is now pulling on your hippocampus and directing all of that energy. And it's pushing it and pulling it through you. But now you can feel it. And it doesn't feel good. That is why you go to healing. That is why it suddenly hurts so much. Because you're finally feeling it. Because your hippocampus has finally grown. You can be small hippocampus and abused night and day and you're not going to feel it because you have a small hippocampus. You can feel it, but you're desensitized to it because you have a small hippocampus. It's when your hippocampus grows that you start to feel the vibrations and it starts to rip you apart. So now you have a choice. Shrink your hippocampus, go get abused more, and it will shrink. Or align yourself. That's what I do, is I start aligning people so that when your hippocampus reaches a certain level, and you're starting to feel the physics, oh, we got to do an emergency alignment now. Let's get you aligned. Now you can clear your chakra all fucking day, but that's not the problem. You're going to have to keep clearing it. The thing is, if you're aligned and you're in your own song and you understand the subconscious mind and the cognitive core and how that all works, you never need to clear your chakras. They do it on their own. The universe takes care of it for you. You have to keep clearing your chakras because you have unresolved trauma in your subconscious mind that you're not addressing. Because you have frequencies in there that aren't yours. Because you have words in there that are not yours. You have emotions in there that is causing a significant misalignment of positive and negative energy. You are a battery with irregular charge. It's going to fucking hurt. Your entire subconscious mind basically needs to be reformatted. Now, you can meditate all day long. You can do your tarot readings. But at the end of the day, it's your subconscious mind that has full and total control over that because of how your cognitive core functions. Manifestation, physics, and the cognitive core of your subconscious mind are absolutely a working mechanism inside of your brain. And it is a beautiful machine that is designed to push and pull on all of the negative and positive energy in your brain that influences which hormones you feel based on which emotions are being dumped into your system. Really, this is the edge of my work. This is where I stop and say, go get my master classes. Do I open this gate? My class just went over this yesterday. Do I open this gate? I'm going to have to sit down and seriously think about this because this really, truly is the difference between my livelihood and me handing this information over. So I'm going to sit down and think and figure that out and decide what my priorities are and if I want to eat. Bottom line, do I want to eat? Because this is the information I use that monetizes so I can fucking eat. So this is literally the end of my free material. It's right here. What do I do now? Can I get around? I can get around it. Yes. I can get around it. I have to seriously talk to my intuition and my identity. So thank you so much for joining me. If you like shit like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want more shit like this, check out my amphitheater with my megaphone and drop your email list below for that shit because it's awesome. And if you want all of this in an ordered, organized fashion designed with purpose, check out my masterclasses. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.